On April 8, 2024, a total solar eclipse will cross North America, passing over Mexico, the United States, and Canada. A total solar eclipse happens when the moon passes between the sun and Earth, completely blocking the face of the sun. Joe Della Carpini from the National Weather Service explains how a solar eclipse happens.
Hi, everyone. This is Joe Deli Carpini. I'm a meteorologist and the Science and Operations Officer with the National Weather Service's Boston office, which is located in Norton. And I'm also a Norwood resident. We're here today to talk about the total solar eclipse that will be visible in the Northeast on Monday, April 8th. So to begin, this is a look at the path of the totality of the eclipse, and notice it runs from roughly Texas up into portions of the Ohio Valley and into the eastern Great Lakes, much of upstate New York and northern New England. And notice while Norwood is not directly in the path of totality, we can expect about 92.5% coverage of the sun. So most of it will be obscured by the moon, and that maximum coverage occurs right at 3:29 p.m. on Monday. Now, the image in the map shows our average cloud cover for April 8th, and you can see in the Northeast there's actually typically a lot of cloud cover shown by some of the orange colors, especially in and around the Great Lakes and kind of coinciding with that path of totality. A little bit further south into southern New England, notice we've got more in the way of greenish colors, and that represents about 60% of cloud cover on the sky. Typically. But as we'll talk about here in the forecast, it's actually looking a little bit better than that on next Monday. So here's just a brief look at the timing of the solar eclipse here in Norwood. It begins at about 2:16 p.m. That will be when the edge of the moon first just starts touching the sun. It really won't be very noticeable. And then, as I mentioned, our maximum of the eclipse, about 92.5% coverage, will be at 3:29 p.m. And that's, again, when the sun will be at its most hidden position. And then the solar eclipse will end around 4:39 p.m., and that's when the last edge of the moon will leave the edge of the sun. So again, it's roughly right around 3:29 p.m. is the maximum. It won't get completely dark here, but you'll notice probably a little bit darker conditions than usual during the afternoon. Now, here's what the eclipse will look like around the region, and obviously the farther north you go, the more of the sun will be obscured. And on the left, you can see the path of totality in northern New England. And that covers much of the northern part of Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine, as well as a lot of upstate New York around the Great Lakes as well. So those are really the areas where you're going to have the full obscuration of the sun. Notice, though, even into portions of southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, it'll be pretty much obscured there as well, close to 100%. And then obviously the further south you go, the less of the moon will be covering the sun. But again, here in Norwood, it's about 92.5%, which is most of that. And you can see a little zoom up on the right here, kind of what it will look like in different cities around the region. And again, if you just head a little bit north, just over the Massachusetts border, you'll certainly see a lot more of the obscuration. And again, just a safety reminder, you never look directly at the sun in these cases. It can cause eye damage. You want to use special eclipse glasses or even a pinhole projector. And you can find a lot of these options for safe viewing with a simple online search. So again, don't look directly at the sun during the eclipse. So what about the weather? Well, we've been getting a lot of questions about that. And actually, it looks pretty favorable on next Monday. Really no big storms in sight. And this is a weather map for next Monday morning. You can see really not much happening in the Northeast. We have high pressure off the coast of the Virginias. There is a little bit of a weak cold front here that's coming down out of Canada. It's not going to really produce any rain, but there could be some cloudiness with it. I think most of that would be limited areas, north of the greater Boston area, maybe more toward the Great Lakes. So at the worst, there might be some clouds in that path of totality there. But right now, it's not looking too bad even in those areas. And as we get closer, obviously, we'll be able to nail down those exact details on the forecast. I would anticipate over the weekend we'll have a pretty good idea as far as the cloud cover goes. So what about, some early looks? Well, we can look at some of the computer model data to kind of show us kind of a first guess. And again, we're looking several days out, so this is going to change. It's not going to be pretty much locked in several days ahead. But here's a look at one model sky cover forecast. And the dark areas are essentially clear skies, the brighter, whiter areas where there are clouds. And notice there's maybe a few clouds across western New York and maybe around the Catskills. But overall in the Northeast, really looking at overall clear skies. And this is for 2 p.m. Monday, so just before the eclipse really gets going. But again, the clouds are limited across southern Canada where that cold front was located. So I think we'll be in pretty good shape, especially down here in the Boston area. And just to take a look at another computer model forecast, again, showing largely clear skies throughout much of the Northeast. This model has more clouds across the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley, which kind of goes along with that path of totality there. But again, in the Northeast, it's actually looking pretty good. So we'll kind of hope that that holds as we head over the next few days. So how can we get weather updates? Well, whether you're staying here in Norwood or maybe traveling north to view the eclipse, you can get your forecast from the National Weather Service here on our webpage. You can go directly to the Boston office page, which is weather.gov/Boston. You'll see a little box up on the top left part of the screen. You can enter the location, and here I've entered Norwood. And you can just click on Norwood, Mass, USA, or maybe you're going up to Vermont, so you want to put Burlington, Vermont in there, or maybe out toward upstate New York, out toward Syracuse or Watertown. You can put those locations in here as well, or enter a zip code. And what you'll see is a worded forecast on the top, but what I want to point your attention to is something we have called an hourly weather graph, and this will give you kind of an hour-by-hour forecast, especially for sky cover, which I know will be important during Monday afternoon. So if you scroll down past the worded forecast that you'll see, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a little graph icon, and you want to go ahead and click on that. And when you do, you'll get our hourly weather graph. And this gives you a number of different weather elements. So it's actually good for even outside of the eclipse, just for day-to-day forecasts. But you'll see things like temperature on here, humidity. You'll see some wind graphs on here along with wind speed. But if you go to the lower part, you'll see in the blue, that's actually the sky cover in percent. So you'll notice it's a graph of sky cover hour by hour. And here I've blocked off the time on Monday for much of the day. And you can see that sky cover is actually going to be pretty low, on the order of 10, 20% or so. So that means probably some pretty good viewing here in Norwood, at least at the moment. But again, this is something you can check. It's updated several times throughout the day. And this will always give you the latest forecast information for a single location. So again, use it for Norwood, use it if you're heading up to Burlington, maybe out towards Syracuse, Watertown, to really get a good view of the eclipse. So again, that's our sky cover forecast, which is in the hourly weather graph feature. So with that, that's a quick look at what we can expect here in Norwood as far as the totality of the eclipse. Again, it will not be here, but will be about 92.5% obscured, so most of the sun will be dimmed by the moon. But again, you really have to head north into northern New England, upstate New York, to be in that path of totality. If you are traveling there, be aware there will be probably quite a bit of traffic, so allow yourself plenty of extra time to get there, drive safely. And again, please don't view directly at the eclipse. Use safety glasses or any other ways you can find online. So again, I'm Joe Deli Carpini from the National Weather Service, and we'll talk to you next time.